What's up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, based on the title and thumbnail, you guys already know we're finally working on Little Red again. Like I mentioned before, the tune port injection setup on this car is not easily tunable, at least not as easily tunable as a carburetor would be. So we are going to be tearing this whole entire thing apart, pulling the distributor out of it. We're going to pull the AC pump off. Just takes up a lot of space. It's a mess, so we're going to pull the whole entire AC system out. And then another thing that does not work is the radiator fan, which is why this car overheated on me at the track, toasting the transmission that's in it. So we're also going to be fixing the transmission, not in this video, but in a future video to come. First, we're going to tackle the engine situation. If you guys watched my previous video where I delivered the Eclipse to the garage, you guys heard this car start and run, which I'm going to do for you guys in just a minute. This car is running extremely rich, like so rich that if you start this car and run it for just a couple seconds, one rev is enough to smoke the whole entire garage out with fumes. And it's so bad that you can actually even see it. So in order for me to tune this tune port injection setup, I would have to get a chip burner set, I'd have to download the software, and I'd have to tune it from the ground up, get it idling, get it, running, and I'd have to constantly be pulling the chip out, re-burning it, putting it back in, trying to drive it. It's nothing compared to how like your Holley setups are. The Holley setups are way simpler and easier to play with than this, and it would cost a decent amount of money for me to actually buy the whole chip burning kit. So right underneath our TCI rebuild kit, you see I got an Edelbrock 650 that looks brand new. My grandpa just had it laying around in the garage, so that's super convenient. And then somewhere in here, probably under the radiator fan, which like I mentioned is getting replaced, I have an Edelbrock Performer intake manifold that will be replacing the tune port injection intake manifold. So I also have some more goodies in these boxes here, which I'll do an unboxing, so you guys will see that in this video. But before I get too ahead of myself, as you guys can see, this car has been sitting for a long time. It's filthy. I mean, we have dust all over the car. If you guys take a look here, I mean, it's really, really bad. I'm gonna put the GoPro on, we'll hook up the battery, give Little Red a start up, back her out of the garage, give her a little spray down. Then after that, we'll pull her right back into the garage and start tearing into this engine. So with that being said, let's get to work. Well, as you guys can see, this car needs a tune. It's still smoky in here. You guys can even see up by the lights, like literally the whole entire garage is fumes right now. Now right here is our Edelbrock 650 carburetor. Comes with our gaskets, our new hardware. I mean, this thing's, from what it looks like, pretty new. And in this box we have our Edelbrock Performer intake that I bought used off of Facebook Marketplace. No damage to the ports, maybe just a little bit of old gasket material that we want to make sure is off, but other than that, this thing will work perfect. Right here we have our MSD 6AL that I found laying around the garage, so we'll have our RPM chip in here for our new rev limiter. Now the rest of the stuff in here we're going to save for later. But over here in our passenger seat we got some goodies from Amazon. Right here from Amazon we have our new intake manifold gaskets from Felpro, a new carburetor gasket. I wasn't sure if I had one with that carburetor or not, so we got a new Felpro gasket for the carburetor as well. Now in this little bag we have our T-fitting with some hose clamps, our fuel pressure gauge that you guys will see right here. I got a little liquid fuel pressure gauge, goes from 0 to 15 psi, and we're going to use this to monitor the pressure of fuel going from the regulator to the carburetor. So this will thread in here, and we'll have this sitting in the engine bay so that we're able to, while we're tuning the carburetor, make sure that we have the proper amount of fuel pressure going to our float bowls. And then in this big box we have our electronic distributor. Bam, there we go. Brand new vacuum advance distributor for the Corvette. So this will be replacing the stock one that runs off of the computer. Should be able to completely eliminate that OBD1 computer setup in the Corvette, and we're going mechanical with the car, so that'll allow us to make way simpler adjustments to the car and actually get it dialed in without running into any conflict between the computer and what I want to do. So from Amazon, for a pretty decent price, we got a distributor, which we'll probably have to upgrade in the future once we hit some better power levels with Little Red, but for now this is going to be like version 1 of the car, just to get it running sound, get it tunable, so I can start taking it to the track. And then in the future, just to give you guys a sneak peek, if you guys look over here, I've got a old little nitrous kit that's been sitting around for a long time, since my grandpa had it on his race car way back in the 90s, so we'll have to get like the bottle recertified and stuff like that, but we will be able to throw a little shot of nitrous at the car in the future, obviously. And that's also what those American Racing forged pistons are for. So like I said, that's going to be like a version 2 of the car. This is just version 1. We're going to get her running right so we can take her to the track, get her dialed in. I can start tuning a carburetor for the first time. That is a lot of fuel, guys, if you can't tell. That is nuts. Let's get the GoPro on and finally start working on Little Red. All right, so let's start by propping this hood open. We will disconnect the battery yet again. Pry our intake off. We will disconnect our mass airflow sensor because we don't need that anymore. There's our old air cleaner. Now our coolant temperature is still a little bit hot, so we're not going to remove any of our coolant lines just yet. Go ahead and pop these guys off. I'm going to wrap this old wiring harness up right up against the firewall. Just tuck it out of the way. I'll wrap it up really nice so you won't really see it or anything. But I'm not going to go cutting wires or anything, just in case I, for any reason, ever wanted to go back to this setup. We're going to leave it all in there. We're just going to wrap everything up and tuck it real nice and neat away, maybe on that side over the brake booster. We're also going to remove everything from our AC pump. Once this whole unit is out of here, we're going to free up so much space. As long as I get the carburetor and everything tuned right, this car should definitely run faster than it did on its first track day, which I'll play a clip right now of how that went. Left lane 14.7 at 89 miles an hour. Pretty sure it ran like a high 14, and that's kind of what these cars were rated for stock. But this should be a major improvement. Okay. All right. That's a nasty hose. Jeez. So I didn't realize the camera wasn't recording, but I did cut my coolant fan wires right here. So once this comes off, we'll be able to bolt our new fan up. We'll probably just run a wire from the battery to a switch, so that way we can just manually control it from inside the car. It'll be way simpler. Since we're not going to have any of our sensors hooked up, the fan isn't going to work with a computer, which it technically already isn't. So it'll be a lot easier just to manually control that. Get those guys out of the way. Let's unplug all of our fuel injectors. There we go. So we'll get that out of the way. We're gonna have a lot of extra space once all this stuff's cleaned up, which will be really nice. It won't be as annoying to work on. Now we'll separate the plenum from the runners. Then we'll get our runner bolts loose. That was the hardest one right there. Should be enough to remove the plenum now. Yep. There we go. Got one more sensor down here to disconnect. We got the plenum back off. That's right, on this side I got one more bolt that's on the inside that was underneath the plenum. And we have one more on this side as well for the driver's side. Alright, there is one side. And we'll remove our driver's side. Like so. And now we have access to our fuel rails and our intake manifold, so this is all going to come off, as well as the distributor, which this has not been off in a long time, if you guys can tell. The fuel rails are about as far as I've tore into this engine, so we're going to go a little bit farther than that this time and pull the whole entire intake manifold up. We'll clean up all the gunk and grease that's been sitting over here for a long time. Then we'll get started on removing this whole air conditioning system, and we're getting this done pretty quick. I know putting it back together is going to be a little more tedious. We'll pull this vacuum line off, unplug some of these. We'll disconnect these fuel lines from the rails. We'll loosen these 4 top bolts. And our fuel rail should pop right up with the injectors here. A little shake. Make sure that all the O-rings for the injectors came out with the injectors, which it looks like. Yep, they all look like they're on there. That's good. We'll set that there for now. Let's remove the distributor cap, and that should free up enough space to hopefully pull this thing out. This is our normal 3-wire, and then looks like these two are probably for the electronic advance. Okay. There we go, distributor cap off. Now we can remove our mounting bolt here. We're gonna have to disconnect this guy. Alright, so that'll remove that. Make sure none of these guys drop down into the intake, because that would be a very, very, very bad day. There we go. A little bit of convincing, that's all. Alright, our distributor is out. Now we should be in good shape to remove our intake manifold bolts, and looks like everything's disconnected. So the goal is to not strip any of these and to not snap any of these. So we are not using an impact. We got a T40 bit, and we're gonna go real slow. Hopefully try to crack these guys loose. There's one. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That one's on an angle. We're going to get the swivel for that. 8, 9, 10, 11. Alright, screw that. I am taking the thermostat off. Yeah, we're in good shape. Hell yeah, dude. Get to that guy real easy. Sweet. Got that bracket out of the way. Then we'll get the pry bar and pry up on the intake, and the whole entire manifold should come right off. There we go. Let's get a little bit of separation. Well, there we go, guys. We got the whole entire tune port injection setup removed from the car. We're gonna have to scrape up all this old gasket material before we move along and install our new Edelbrock Performer. The next thing on our list is removing this whole entire air conditioning system so that we free up a ton of space in here. I'm hoping that it's not charged with anything. We're gonna find out here pretty soon. It probably isn't because the air conditioning wasn't working in this. So now that we have the whole entire TPI system removed from the car, we're gonna go ahead, put the GoPro back on. We're gonna move on to the AC system, getting this whole entire thing ripped out of here. So it'll free up a little bit of horsepower, and it's gonna free up a ton of engine bay space for us to work around. So we'll go ahead and pop the GoPro back on and get right back to work. So I'm gonna put a couple strips of duct tape on here just to make sure that these are all covered up. Doesn't have to be the prettiest, just has to cover up the holes. There we go, that'll do the job. Okay. We'll turn it up. Alright guys, so we're back a few days later. I had to go get an emergency haircut really quick, so I had to stop working on the AC pump removal for just a little bit of time so I could go get that haircut. Now the reason that I had the fan going was because it got really hot in here. But yeah, now we can get the GoPro back on and we can finish removing this whole AC unit. So yeah, let's get right back to it. So this is where I left off. We'll pull this bolt out of here and we have both of our lines disconnected from the pump finally. Now from what it looks like here, this is the first time I'm messing with something like this. We just got a couple bolts here for the bracket, and then it looks like the only line that's still connected to something is this one that runs up probably up to the blower motor. Remove this line, remove the couple little bolts for the bracket. Looks like we got a line going up to our radiator as well, so we're gonna pull that off, pull this off. Should be able to pull all this out of here and free up a lot more space so that we can get to removing the compressor from the engine. Hell yeah, dude. Freeing up space. Little Red's slowly becoming a race car. Yeah, this whole entire bracket will come out of here now. Number 2. And there's our bracket out of the way. So we're gonna need to start by removing our belt, which I'm gonna need to order a smaller belt anyway. So we're gonna make it easy. We're gonna cut it. There it is. So we will remove our belt. Like so. Yep, I gotta pull the valve cover off. Good news is that I can reuse the gaskets. There we go. Now I think we have one more at the bottom of this. Yep, looks like we got one more at the bottom. This is gonna take a while, guys. Instead of putting your wrench on a bolt like this, I'm going straight on it like so, and I'm trying to twist it. I already got it loose, but right now we're running into literally no clearance with that bolt and the AC pulley. So I can get just enough on here to do about a half a turn. As you guys can see, it's actually turning the pulley because the bolt's touching it. Yeah, now our bolt's hitting the front ring of this compressor, and it still needs to come out more. Try to remove it with some brute force. Yeah, let's go, dude. That sucked. So now we got our compressor loose. So this right here is our SMOG pump. That's also taking up a lot of space in this engine bay, so we're going to be removing that. And it'll make pulling this AC compressor out a little bit easier. We already got it loose. So we're going to be technically doing an AC delete, we're doing a SMOG pump delete, and we're doing our tune port injection delete. So we're freeing up a ton of space in this engine bay, and it's going to be a lot nicer to work with this car once we get all that done. But yeah, let's remove a couple of these brackets, and then this whole entire system should come off as well. Looks like we got one more bolt down here holding in the pump, and of course the bolt's going to run into the pulley. We'll pull these 3 bolts off, our pulley should pop off, and then we can get to that last bracket bolt. Got our pulley off. That frees up this bottom bolt. Now that we got our pump loose, we can disconnect this line here. There we go, SMOG pump removed. Okay, more parts coming off. And there is our AC compressor removed. Let's pull off our brackets. That will free up even more space, and then we'll get to the good stuff. Probably be able to pull off at least this front line for our SMOG system. It runs from both manifolds and connects them to the whole pump system that you guys just saw. So we'll go ahead and remove our AC compressor bracket, our SMOG pump bracket, and then we can pull this front line off of our exhaust system. So it looks like all we need is a 9/16. So there's our AC compressor bracket with our belt tensioner. And here's our SMOG pump bracket. Now it looks like we have a couple little clamps here, and then this front exhaust line should be able to come right off. Looks like that's broke. I don't know if I just broke that or if it was broke before, but we're getting rid of it either way. Alright, we got it off. Alright, radiator fan removed. Well, as you guys can see, we have this engine stripped of pretty much everything that we wanted to get rid of. We have the old tune port injection intake setup stripped from the top of the engine. We pulled off our whole SMOG system aside from these rails that are connected to the exhaust manifolds. We still have to take care of those, which those will be coming off once I get the set of headers in, and that'll be just bolt up replacement, which will free up even a little bit more space on both sides of the engine. And then we got the big air conditioning unit tore apart, which you guys saw at the beginning of the video. We had our canister up here, our big compressor. We also have our radiator fan removed. We still have our 2 fuel lines that would go to our fuel rails right up here, so we can tap into that with our regulator and hopefully get our whole fuel system figured out here so that we can run the stock fuel pump with the carbureted setup. I'm gonna have to replace the bolts that you guys saw were plugged up some of the oil passages so that we don't have any oil spewing out. We're gonna have to relocate our belt tensioner, which if you guys saw was connected to our AC pump bracket. So we're gonna have to pull this off and relocate it. Once this is all done, this car should finally run reliably. This is the farthest that I've tore into this engine. Now the very next video that you guys see, I'll be putting the intake manifold on with the carburetor. We're not going to have it running in the very next video because that's going to take a whole video by itself to actually get the car running. So if you guys enjoyed this first episode of Little Red's Revival, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications because I have a lot of plans for this engine right behind me and this car in general. So a lot of content is on the way. Especially with that Eclipse back there. We're going to be tearing into that hopefully soon, and we're going to be pumping out a lot of content with that car. So quick update on the Monza. I'm going to give you guys a sneak peek on the wrap. This car is getting wrapped as we speak right now, so that's going to come out sweet. It's going to be the coolest looking car on the channel for sure, and it's going to run sick once we get the engine build all taken care of. I have more parts on the way, so the engine build is finishing up here pretty soon. Then all we got to do is pop the engine and transmission in, wire it all up, and we should be set to go. So racing next season is looking very hopeful with the Monza, so definitely subscribe for the Monza content on the way. If you guys have any tips or suggestions on this carburetor swap on the L98, definitely let me know. This is the first time I'm tackling something like this, so it's definitely a learning experience still. I'm no expert when it comes to this stuff, guys. I'm learning, so thank you guys again so much for watching and the support on the channel. This has been Dan. I'll see you guys in the next one.